Hello and welcome. My name is Meepolis, they, she, he, and this is Literally Graphic. And today we are looking at a non-fiction work of graphic medicine and graphic memoir, Taking Turns, by M.K. Czerwiec. They apparently just released a second edition, but the one I read was published in 2017 by Penn State University College of Medicine. Content notes for cancer, parent death, HIV/AIDS, patient death, hospice, and nursing. According to the back flap, M.K. Czerwiec is, quote, a nurse who uses comics to contemplate the complexities of illness and caregiving. She is the artist in residence at the Northwestern University's Feinberg School of Medicine, co-curator of graphicmedicine.org, and co-author of Graphic Medicine Manifesto, also published by Penn State. End quote. She also has been one of the main hosts of the Graphic Medicine podcast and is a lesbian. What keywords came to mind? Dignity, negotiating boundaries, death, community care, and art. The summary is, quote, in 1994, at the height of the AIDS epidemic in the United States, M.K. Czerwiec took her first nursing job at Illinois Masonic Medical Center in Chicago as part of the caregiving staff of HIV/AIDS Care Unit 371. Taking Turns pulls back the curtain on life in the ward. A shining example of excellence in the treatment and care of patients, Unit 371 was a community of thousands of patients and families affected by HIV and AIDS and the people who cared for them. This graphic novel combines Czerwiec's memories with the oral histories of patients, family members, and staff. It depicts life and death in the ward, the ways the unit affected and informed those who passed through it, and how many look back on their time there today. Czerwiec joined Unit 371 at a pivotal time in the history of AIDS. Deaths from the syndrome in the Midwest peaked in 1995 and then dropped drastically in the following year, with the release of antiretroviral protease inhibitors. This positive turn of events led to a decline in patient populations, and ultimately to the closure of Unit 371. Czerwiec's restrained, inviting drawing style and carefully considered narrative examines individual, institutional, and community responses to the AIDS epidemic, as well as the role that art can play in the grieving process. Deeply personal, yet made up of many voices, the history of daily life in a unique AIDS care unit is an open, honest look at suffering, grief, and hope among a community of medical professionals and patients at the heart of the epidemic. End quote. In retrospect, I'm not sure if this was the best thing I could have read this past week, because this week was incredibly tough in many ways, and this book deals with a lot of heavy topics, although I also feel like maybe it was exactly the right thing to read, because perhaps the only comforting thing right now is reading about other caregivers living through their own crises, which is certainly a perspective. I think the plot synopsis does perhaps overemphasize the group input aspect of the book, or at least it probably went into the background of the book but wasn't addressed in the narrative beyond the fact that Czerwiec did patient surveys. That said, I feel like this is a really great and important work, and I'm probably also projecting my own struggles around my position as a giver of care right now. Knowing who created the book, I did not go into it expecting much more than the perspective I got, which is certainly casting a wide focus across her community. I just need to find out if there are more comics from an HIV/AIDS patient perspective. Preliminary research has revealed 7 miles a second by David Wojnarowicz, so that's been added to the TBR. One thing I really appreciated about this book is how little time NK spent depicting homophobia and the abandonment that many HIV/AIDS patients faced. Obviously, those are important facets of the AIDS crisis that cannot be forgotten or minimized, but being in the thick of it, in a space where people were given so much loving care and dignity, MK chose to focus on that. This isn't to say hard topics are not tackled, but this was one of the ways it felt like a book for the queer community and anyone else who wants to read it, rather than a 101 explainer text for the general public on HIV/AIDS. Moving along to the art, I can see it being a bit of a barrier to some regulars to my channel. That's fine. I think for me, being someone who's open to a lot of different styles, the key is consistency and not biting off more than one can chew. In some ways, the simplicity makes it feel more relatable, and perhaps inspiring to readers to put their own pens to paper. Flipping through the book, it is incredibly accessible and readable. The writing is also extremely compelling and sucked me right in. Sexuality and gender are obviously pretty central to most of the HIV/AIDS narratives I have consumed over my life. In Taking Turns, the pattern does continue to a certain extent, but wasn't something I felt was super emphasized. I think in this instance, because of how targeted different identities have been when it comes to HIV/AIDS, even though people from all genders and sexuality communities have been impacted, de-emphasizing was a constructive choice, especially because it was still there and obviously not hidden. What do you think? Race did not seem to be something that came up in the book at all. Class, again, felt perhaps a bit de-emphasized. Chronic illness, on the other hand, was obviously the main focus of Taking Turns. A lot of time was spent highlighting some of the unorthodox ways doctors and patients interacted in Unit 371 and the positive impacts that had. MK also writes about the time she accidentally stuck herself with a needle, teaching someone to check their blood sugar, and the way she worked through that. Bodies becoming more and more disabled, and the impact, or lack thereof, of medication was also explored, along with MK's experience watching so many people die. This is one of those books that I'll be thinking about for a long time to come, both for the feels and the food for thought. If you feel up to picking up this book right now, I would highly recommend it. 5 out of 5 stars. Bye y'all, keep reading, and organized end capitalist oppression. And as always, Literally Graphic is created on land that should be given back to the traditional landholders, which in this case is, to my knowledge, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, non-Anishinaabe people, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat Nation.